Hi everyone, this is Lilian Chukura with Lily Legal, where we help our clients get status for themselves and for their families using the U.S. immigration law system. So today I'm going to be talking to you about the VAWA do's and don'ts. Okay, we want to know what you can do while filing for VAWA, what you can't do. If you are interested in this, stay tuned. Okay. So, hi. So, like I said, we'll be talking about VAWA do's and don'ts. I love talking about VAWA. If you have been following me for any amount of time, you know I love talking about this topic. But today, I want to focus in on what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing if you want a successful VAWA case. Okay, we want you to not only get your VAWA, but also get a green card and then citizenship. So, we want to make sure that you stick to these do's and don'ts. All right. Now, if you would like to schedule a consultation with me, you can do so by going to my website, lilylegal.com, or by calling the number on the screen. All my contact information, as always, is in the description to this video. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. So, the first question people always ask me is, what is VAWA? Who qualifies for it? How do I apply for it? What do I get? So let's just get that out of the way. VAWA stands for Violence Against Women's Act. It's a domestic violence provision that allows for people that have been in relationships where they have suffered either physical, emotional, any sort of violence from their partner to gain status. So, if you have been married to a US citizen or permanent resident and you suffered abuse during that relationship, either physical or extreme emotional abuse, you can get status through VAWA. So, that's why this is one of the things that has persisted in immigration law because it provides a way out for victims of domestic violence. Now, before I go any further, someone out there is going to be like, oh, so this only applies to women. No, this applies to everyone. Everyone, okay? Including people married to US citizens and permanent residents, children of US citizens and permanent residents, parents of US citizens and permanent residents. So it's not just for women, it is for people that are in these abusive relationships. There are certain requirements. Like I said, you have to be either married to a US citizen or permanent resident, be a child of a US citizen or permanent resident, or be a parent of a US citizen or permanent resident that is over 21. Okay, so those are the key people that can benefit under this. So it is really important that you pay attention to how you qualify, if you qualify, before you even apply. I go through this. I have a more in-depth VAWA video. Go ahead and watch that if you just want to check before consulting a lawyer. Go ahead and do that. Now, what qualifies as violence? Okay, do 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 apply, okay, um because there's so many avenues, there's so many different things that count as domestic violence, and it is not just physical violence. Okay, do keep an open mind on what counts as violence. Keep an open mind on what counts as abuse. Some things that we may not consider as abuse could actually fall under this. So go ahead and consult with a lawyer. Um, what I typically do with my clients is we go a step further because, right, when we're talking, You may not know, you may not give me every single detail of your relationship. However, if there's been no physical violence, no police reports, or medical reports, what I do is I have you do a psychological evaluation with a licensed therapist. What's the purpose of this? The purpose of it is to have a professional that it's their job to analyze people, analyze situations, actually ask you questions. They're able to pull out more information than I will. Okay, so it is very important that you keep an open mind as to what is abuse and keep an open mind to seeing um, a therapist for the purpose of documenting the abuse and violence you have faced in your relationship. Okay, so that's the second do. Do keep an open mind. All right. Now, don't don't assume that the abuse that you have faced does not rise to the level of extreme based on your own understanding. Do not assume that the level of abuse that you have faced does not rise to the level of extreme based on your own understanding. Because let's be honest, okay, immigration is very specific in certain things. But when it comes to extreme um, abuse, there's not a one definition for it. Okay, it's a totality of the circumstances. Is how bad has it gotten that you can document. So it is really important that you do not make this decision on your own. You seek help when you need it. Okay. A do that I want to make sure you know is do keep documentation. Okay. Keep documentation. I've had people tell me, like, the second I got out of that relationship, I burned everything. And although that may be cleansing for you in your particular situation, for immigration purposes, they do want some form of documentation, right? Documentation of you and your spouse living together, documentation of your relationship with your spouse, phone calls, text messages, all those things, pictures. Don't delete those. Don't burn them. Don't throw them away. Put them in a box somewhere away from your view, or give it to a friend that you trust to keep safe for you so that you don't have to see it every single day. But do not get rid of it, because when it comes time to actually apply for VAWA and you need those documents, you will not have access to them once you delete them or you burn them. Okay. So it is really important that you do keep your documents, even if you have to give it to a trusted friend to keep for you so that you're not seeing it every day. Go ahead and do that. Okay. Don't do not do not wait till you know 2 years 3 years after your divorce to look at your options. Okay, if you are leaving a relationship that was abusive and you want to get a divorce, you can still apply for VAWA up to 2 years after your divorce. Up to, once you hit that 2 year mark and more, you no longer qualify for VAWA. Okay, so it's really important that if you're going through the divorce process and you think you may even qualify, go ahead and speak with an immigration lawyer. Okay, go ahead and speak with an immigration lawyer. Do not leave it till later, because honestly, leaving it till later is going to cause you more harm than good. Because once you hit that 2 year mark, like I said, you no longer qualify for VAWA. You will have a harder time getting status unless you have another avenue of getting status in the US. So If VAWA is your way of getting status in the US, you definitely do not want to wait till 2 years after your divorce. It's really important that you pay attention to that. Okay. Now, another don't is do not, do not, do not get an annulment. I'm going to repeat this. Do not get an annulment. You can file for divorce, you can get a divorce, but do not file for an annulment. So, what's the difference between a divorce and an annulment? An annulment basically says, well, this divorce, this marriage, from the time it started, was not, should not have been. It basically takes away the marriage. The marriage never happened at this point. Okay. Once you get an annulment, if you're filling out forms that ask if you've ever been married, you can say no, you've never been married, because an annulment cancels out that marriage as if it never happened. Okay. So it is so important that if you're doing this, that you're making sure that you are not getting an annulment. If you want a divorce, go ahead. You can file for divorce while your VAWA is pending, but do not get an annulment. Do not agree to an annulment. I've seen situations where the abusive spouse will try to undermine the spouse that's a non immigrant, that's the immigrant, and file for an annulment and basically make all these false claims in order to try to get an annulment. And if you agree to it, the marriage never happened. So if the marriage never happened, you cannot file for VAWA because the VAWA is based on the marriage. Does that make sense? So it's really important that if you are going to um, not just leave your spouse, but file legal documents to end the marriage, that you are getting a divorce, because most of the time you would not meet the requirements of an annulment unless your spouse has lied in some way on that form. Okay. I know in Massachusetts, you need some sort of fraud, you need something that makes the marriage invalid from the time it started. And if you agree to it and you sign off on it and you do not fight it, you're going to end up not being able to qualify for VAWA. And sometimes the abusive spouse knows this and they're going to try to use it against you. So, again, do not, do not get an annulment. Do get a divorce if you want to legally end the marriage. Okay? Get a divorce and make sure, again, I say this because I have experienced this, and I want people to understand why I do these do's and don'ts, or when I'm talking about things, I'm being specific, is because I've seen it. Okay. I've seen it harm clients. I've seen it harm um, people. I've seen people try to take advantage of their non citizen spouses. So, or try to undermine their VAWA. So, another way that your VAWA can be undermined by your divorce filing is by it stating that you and your spouse never lived together. If you're divorce filing, which in most states are public documents that the US government can get access to, okay, says that you and your spouse never lived together and you never, you know, and you never actually went ahead and stopped this, right? You never filed anything in court to dispute the fact that you two actually did live together, present evidence that you two actually did live together. You are shooting yourself on the foot, because if the US government decides to do that research and see divorce filing that says you and your spouse never lived together, and also sees that you never actually disputed that fact, you no longer meet that requirement, and that's a very strong requirement. Now you would need more documentation to basically make up for it. Okay, you need strong proof of your relationship to make up for it. So trust me, you want to avoid this. So do not do not agree to any divorce filing that says specifically that you and your spouse never lived together. Do not agree to an annulment. Do not file an annulment, okay? Because those will harm your immigration filings, okay? So, I hi there from Morocco. Welcome. If you are just joining me, feel free to ask your questions and tell me where you're joining me from. Okay. So, um, actually, this is a great question, and I will be covering this next week, Friday. We'll be talking about things work visas. I am excited about this topic, so don't miss that. I will be going in depth in the work visa realm because I've gotten so many questions on it that I will be doing a whole live just on work visas. So join me next week, Friday, if you are interested in that topic, so that we can really dig in and ask all your questions then. Okay. I hope that helps you. Now, another deal that I love talking with my clients about is do do get help, right? If you are suffering emotional abuse, I've seen clients that have PTSD from the abuse they suffered, and they never seek help until I force them to get a psychological evaluation, which then snowballs into them getting a therapist that they're meeting with on a regular basis. Okay. So it is so important that if you are in this situation that you are seeking professional help, and not just trying to deal with it on your own. So do seek professional help in dealing with this situation. Um, if you are if you are the parent of a US citizen and you want to file for VAWA based on abuse you have suffered from your child, the abuse has to take place when the child is over 21. So only US citizens over 21 can file for their parents. So before you can file for VAWA based on abuse that you suffered from your child, one, must be a US citizen, and two, must be over 21. I've had parents ask me this question. So I just want to cover that. To get VAWA through a child has to be over 21 and a US citizen. Unfortunately, permanent resident children cannot file for their parents to get status, and their parents cannot file VAWA to get status through them. Okay. So it's really important that you pay attention to that and not file until your child is actually 21, because again, your application will get denied because your child doesn't qualify yet. Okay. And then something to keep in mind, if you are a child and you have suffered abuse from your parents, you can file for VAWA, whether your parents are US citizens or permanent residents. It does not matter. If you are the child of a US citizen or permanent resident that has suffered abuse on the hands of your parents, you can get status through VAWA. So that's always a question that people have. And it doesn't matter whether your parent is a US citizen. If they're a permanent resident, you can still get status. However, the parents cannot get status unless the child is a US citizen. Okay. So just keep that distinction in mind. And then do know that you can still file for VAWA if you no longer live with your spouse, or you no longer live with your parent, or you no longer live with your child. Okay. You can still file for VAWA. Like I said before, even if you're divorced, as long as it hasn't been 2 years since you're divorced, let's say you got divorced last month, you can still file for VAWA based on the abuse you suffered during the marriage. So it's really important. Again, timing is key when it comes to the marriage based um, petitions. When it comes to marriage based VAWA, you really, really want to pay attention to the timing so that you are not missing that 2 year deadline if you are getting a divorce. Okay. If you are just separated from your spouse, so there's a difference between separation and divorce. Okay. If you are just separated and you haven't filed for divorce, there's no time limit. I've seen people that have been separated for 10 years, but during their marriage, when they did live together, they suffered a lot of abuse, including physical abuse, but they never actually thought that there was an option available for them, like VAWA. So they found out about it 10 years later, and they were able to go ahead and file for VAWA then. Again, this is because they never actually got divorced. They were just separated. Now, if they got divorced and it's been 10 years, unfortunately, VAWA will no longer be an option. So again, you need to pay attention to the actual dates, right? The date your divorce becomes final is the date that you're looking at there. So those are the do's and don'ts. Okay. Remember, you want to keep your documents. You want to keep the documents that prove that you and your spouse live together. You want to keep the documents that prove that you and your spouse had a relationship. You want to, keep documents that show the abuse. Okay. Um, like text messages, emails, things like that. You don't want to delete them, and even if you do want to delete them, there are options, there are apps that will let you download the text messages and print them out and keep them in a safe place so that you don't have to look at them. But do not just delete them, because when you need them, they won't be there. So you definitely want to make sure that you are keeping documentation that proves that you were a victim of domestic violence, whether it's through your spouse, your parent, or your child. Okay. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I am happy to respond to you. And then if you are interested in work visas, just know I will be doing a live on work visas next week. And we'll be doing a deep dive into work visas because that is one of the things that is available to um, people. And I want to make sure that you are knowing all your options. But feel free, as I said, to put your questions in the comments. I will be looking at those and responding. I typically do go ahead and respond. Sometimes I make a video on the response. So go ahead, ask me your questions. If you have questions on work visas, go ahead, put them in the comments because it will help me know what you're interested in hearing about and help tailor next week's live as well. Okay. So that is all I have for you today. Okay. Just make sure you are keeping your evidence. You are not getting an annulment. You are filing before your divorce hits 2 years, and you are keeping track of the evidence that you have. So keep those in mind. Okay. So, Andy, I will be talking about work visas for different countries. So feel free to join next week. It's not going to be work visas for US. So everything that I talk about on this page is about um, immigrating to the US. So the work visas would be about immigrating to the US from different countries. Some countries have more options than others. So I will be talking about that in detail next week. So if you're interested in that, go ahead, join me next week and ask me questions. We'll probably do a poll on our channel so that you can have a place to ask me all your work visa questions before next week, Friday. Okay. So that is all I have for you today. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it. And remember, if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you know someone who needs to hear this, who may qualify for VAWA but don't know what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing, go ahead and share this video with them. And if you are listening in a place where you can subscribe, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And as always, if you would like to schedule a consultation with me, you can do so by going to my website, lilylegal.com, calling my number that's on the screen, or um, going in the details for the contact information. And Andy, it will be next week, Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, US time, for the live. Okay. So next week, Friday is, guys, I am not great with dates. So next week, Friday is the 4th. So that would be February 4th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Um, and we will be talking all about work visas. Okay. You don't want to miss it. Bring your questions. We're going to be doing a post that asks you for questions. So go ahead, put your questions there so that you are ready on that day and we can answer your questions, because there's so many types of work visas that we'll be covering, and I want to make sure that we are answering all your questions. Okay. So again, February 4th, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here. You can also watch it on so it is going live on my YouTube page, Lily Legal, Facebook, Lily Legal, and also on Peace TV on Facebook. So same time on all platforms. Come ask your questions. I look forward to seeing you then. And thank you again for joining me today. Bye for now.